Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video. Wife had 3-year affair with her college professor. She claims she was brainwashed by him. Hello, everyone. This is a difficult piece to write, but it seems therapeutic to do so. I'm hoping to obtain some advice along the road. My wife and I have been married for over a decade. We're both in our late 30s. She decided a few years ago that she wanted to return to college and acquire her master's degree. We both agreed that it was a fantastic idea. Our marriage was wonderful, and we were both quite pleased. It was the most joyful I'd ever been. When she returned to school, her life certainly became busier since she had more on her plate. Her conduct began to shift after a few months. She'd stay out later than usual to study in the university library, or she'd get together with classmates for other projects. She'd sometimes forget something at the office and have to go retrieve it, even if it was late. I had a hunch something wasn't right, but I couldn't prove it. Everything she said made perfect sense. I would sometimes double-check items or look for contradictions, but there were none. Everything seemed to be normal. I just assumed I was being paranoid. I sat down to check my emails one Saturday morning. We have a home computer that she sometimes uses for schoolwork. I realized she had failed to log out of her account from the previous night. I see a lot of emails from one individual before I log her out. I wasn't familiar with the name, so I checked her Facebook and Instagram profiles to see if she knew this person. Nope, so I looked him up on the internet, and it turns out he was her college professor. He was in his 50s, married, and had 3 teenage children. He seemed to be happily married. I was relieved and didn't give it much thought after that. The emails seemed to be harmless. When I was in college, I was always exchanging emails with teachers. I never observed anything strange after that. I thought I was being paranoid once again. After a while, life becomes easier. She was really getting into her stride with school, and she wasn't as anxious or busy as she used to be. We had more time together and began constructing a home. Life was virtually on autopilot, until the horror started. It was a Thursday, and I decided to come home early and surprise her, because I wanted to take her out to dinner at a new restaurant that had just opened. I spotted a vehicle pulling out of my driveway as I was going down our street. We passed each other, and I recognized him right away. It was one of her former college professors, so I went into the home right away and saw my wife standing in the kitchen wearing just a towel. She was so taken aback that she didn't know what to say. She seemed as though she was stumbling over her words when she asked why I was at home. I quickly inquired as to why her professor had just left our home and why she was dressed in a towel. She told me I was being dramatic and that nothing had occurred. So I walked right up to our bedroom, despite her attempts to stop me. When I arrived in our room, it was clear what had occurred. I informed her that if she did not tell me everything, I would call his wife. She finally broke down and revealed everything. They'd been having an on-again, off-again romance for 3 years. She said that it began the semester after she left his class. However, she claimed that he brainwashed her and that she didn't want to do it. She said he was in a position of power, despite the fact that he was no longer her professor, and that she was coerced into a connection over a 3-year period. It's been a week since I discovered the news. When my wife was at her parents' home the following morning, I took my belongings out and hired a divorce attorney. I'm starting to feel like a zombie. None of this seems to be genuine. My wife has been constantly messaging, phoning, and emailing me, pleading for forgiveness and a second chance. Her family is also attempting to contact me in order to persuade me to give her another chance. I eventually blocked her on everything and her family today. Fortunately, I have an excellent support network, and everyone has been quite helpful. I'm planning to make an appointment with a therapist next week to get things started. I understand that healing will take time, and I know that I deserve better. Please accept my apologies for the lengthy article. This was something I really wanted to get off my chest. Story 2. Cheated on by ex years ago, and feel like it still affects me today. I'm a 25-year-old man, writing this to maybe get it off my chest. So, in the spring 2015 semester, I met my first girlfriend at university. I was 19, she was 18. I never had a girlfriend before, obviously, and had only had one relationship previously, my first FWB, whom I'd met just a few months prior. I should clarify that I'm autistic and have always struggled with socializing and meeting new people. I met her on Tinder and we got out a few times, and had a good time. The third time we went out, things became, but she began weeping since it was impromptu, and we didn't have condoms. She was terrified she'd wind up like a friend who had a child and wasn't prepared for it. A few years later, I realized I was infertile and couldn't have children. But in any case, we came to a halt at that time, and I'm not sure what occurred today. But we began dating. We had a lot of fun doing things together and having throughout the final couple months of the semester. At the conclusion of the semester, I returned home. My school was in the Los Angeles region, so it wasn't too far away. We had promised not to see anybody else that summer, so we were largely on the same page and had established ourselves as significant others, or so I thought. She ended up with one of her former FWBs that summer. We went together a few times throughout the summer, and that's when she began displaying some of her poisonous characteristics. As someone with autism who had limited experience with women, I was naive and assumed that this is how relationships operate. Back then, she would just withhold in order to get what she desired, or to force a change in me. I was glad to be learning more social standards, and although I knew it wasn't the ideal method to learn, I liked her and didn't think much about it. I should also say that I was always jealous of how much more experience she had and that she experienced it in high school. The next semester, we returned to university, and more toxic circumstances emerged, which I was too ignorant to recognize as poisonous. Most of the arguments we had and other unpleasant events I was furious about I don't recall, since my mind has a defensive mechanism that filters my recollection of details for terrible things. I'll recall something that occurred and an emotion I had as a result of it, but I can't remember precisely what happened or sometimes anything at all. One thing I recall we're doing is making fun of my size. I now know I have an above-average size, but I think she was accustomed to BBC. She was African American with some Asian and I'm Caucasian, and would make compliments on my size, particularly while soft. I'm a grower, not a shower. Anyway, after a time, she began to become more emotionally abusive, and I couldn't recall any particular specifics that raised any worries. So with my confidence fading and a sense that something was wrong but being too ignorant to know what, I began chatting with other females online. Nothing came from them, but my girlfriend found out and accused me of cheating on her. Technically, yes, it's emotional infidelity, and broke up with me, but not before beating me. This was the first of many physical abuses she'd inflicted on me. I attempted, like an idiot, to apologize and win her back. We had lunch, and she informed me she had with her FWB over the summer in order to harm me, even though she claimed it wasn't cheating, since we weren't legally boyfriend-girlfriend, despite our agreement not to see anyone else. I still wanted her back like an idiot since she had damaged my already poor self-esteem, and I feared I'd never find anybody else. Long story short, we were together on and off for another semester, breaking up and getting back together for various reasons, and throughout she was emotionally and physically abusive. She punched me in the at least twice during the relationship and hit me in various other ways at other times. But we were together again during winter break. She was still in her dorm when I returned home. One of her high school pals asked if he might stay with her in her dorm for a while. To her credit, she did ask, and I agreed since I had erroneously trusted her. Though that night I had a feeling something wasn't right, because this guy had a reputation in high school for, I kid you not, taking out his giant and plopping it on other students' tables, and no one reported him, and he never got in trouble because they were like, oh, that's just his name. That's just how he is. I didn't understand how he never got in trouble, but my girlfriend had told me that previously. I FaceTimed her a few nights later and performed her favorite song on the piano. I didn't think much of it until she began weeping. But when I returned to university the next semester, she informed me that the night that man left, he essentially encouraged her to have with him by saying something like, I cheated on her before, so she may as well with him, or something along those lines. So she had with him, but then she felt bad and urged him to stop. Because of her remorse, she supposedly began weeping on FaceTime at that moment. As an idiot with my shattered self-esteem, I felt I'd never get anybody else and attempted to make it work. I ended things with her about a week afterwards. But I became lonely and let her back into my life for the last time. After a few months, I had had enough and told her in a dispute that I had cheated on her with someone else simply to hurt her. I hadn't, but in my mind it would be the end of the relationship forever, and we broke up for the last time. She then went on Twitter and said derogatory things about me, such as, if anybody wants someone with a little and is eager to be banged, take my ex, among other things. I didn't find out about it until later, and to her credit, she agreed that it was nasty and took it down when I told her it wasn't cool. I subsequently heard that when we split up, she immediately went to another man she met at work a few weeks previously, and they were Facebook official the following day. So she was most likely cheating again. Even though she stated her new partner set the relationship status to that day the next time we spoke, it wasn't posted until much later. I honestly didn't believe her. In any case, I'm pleased I had that connection because it taught me a lot about social conventions, pop culture, and racial problems, as well as how I shouldn't be treated by others. Although it took me a long to grasp how poisonous it was, I just wish it hadn't persisted for about 1.5 years of my life on and off. While my self-esteem has improved, it is still affected by her emotional abuse, among other things she did and said. And I still have a strange sensation about being cheated on in relationships. I have the feeling it's going to happen, even though there's no evident cause for it. And a strange part of me nearly gets off by imagining being cheated on and how I would respond. Maybe because I clearly did not respond appropriately to the cheating. I'm not sure.